Hey man, why do Christians attend church on Sundays when the Bible actually describes it as being on Saturdays?
Oh, you mean the Sabbath day?
Yeah, and I've always known people who grew up Christian that religiously wouldn't work on Sundays because it was the Sabbath and the day to go to church.
Right.
So why did it get switched?
Well, Sabbath observance was part of the Old Covenant in the Bible, a day of rest, just as God rested on the seventh day after the 6 days of creation.
Right.
But that command was for Jews under the Old Covenant. Hebrews 8:13 says, "And speaking of a new covenant, he makes the first one obsolete. And what is becoming obsolete and growing old is ready to vanish away."
Okay.
So Christians today, who are under Christ's new covenant, we aren't bound by commands in the Old Covenant, unless they are repeated in the New Covenant, which a lot of them are. Like the Ten Commandments, for example. 9 of them are repeated in the New Testament. The only one that isn't repeated is the command to observe Sabbath. The reason it's not carried over into the New Testament as a day to observe weekly is because Jesus' death on the cross paid for our sin so that we can be made right with God. We're the criminals in God's courtroom. Jesus pays the fine, and we're free to go because of his death, burial, and resurrection.
Okay.
Hebrews 4 is a great chapter to go deeper on this.
Okay.
So now it's all about resting in what Christ did on the cross. That Sabbath rest of the Old Covenant was always pointing to this. I can't earn my way to heaven. There's no works I can do to please the judge of the universe. I put my faith in him and trust everything he did was enough and become a new creation in Christ. So yeah, every day a Christian lives in Sabbath rest because of Jesus.
Makes sense.
But you asked, why do Christians attend church on Sunday? This started with the early church. It was just because Jesus rose from the dead on a Sunday, so it became a day believers got together, so they had community support for one another.
Oh, okay. So you can actually work on Sunday, though?
Well, I mean, it's my conviction that we should take a day of rest once a week. It's good for us mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. And you know, just because we aren't bound by the law anymore, it doesn't mean the law isn't good for us. People are free to take a day of rest, or decide not to. The danger comes when we start acting like it's a command and we get tied up in the works of the law again.
Yeah, I mean, the friends I had growing up, their parents were very strict about not missing a Sunday, because that was the Lord's day. You weren't to work, you weren't even to order a pizza, because you were making that employee sin by working.
Yeah, a lot of people take this out of context and conflate the law with the new covenant desire to want to fellowship with other Christians. I mean, again, Christians are resting in the finished work of the cross, walking in gratitude for what Christ has done. We should want to grow to know him more. We should want to be around fellow Christians who also love Jesus, to be encouraged and to be sharpened by one another.
Good point.
I do understand that if you are a child that is being raised under someone's roof, and that family attends church, that it's just something this family does, children should honor their mothers and their fathers by attending. As long as when that child is of age, those parents understand he or she needs to be able to make that decision on their own. People can't be forced to love Christ. That's not love.
No.
So yeah, we just have to communicate these truths clearly with our kids and everything surrounding this topic of Sunday versus Sabbath.